recommended because I've tasted it now. Yes.
আমরা এইমাত্র আমোদরিয়ার আমাদের স্টুডিওতে এসে পৌঁছেছি এবং সবচেয়ে আনন্দের ব্যাপার হচ্ছে আমাদের সাথে আমাদের শুধু ভারতবর্ষে নয় গোটা পৃথিবীতে আমাদের ভারতবর্ষের একজন অ্যাম্বাসেডর বলতে পারি, যিনি একজন অথর, একজন পোয়েট, যে আমাদের সাথে আজকে সানডে হাটে ছিল। আমরা সানডে হাটে আমাদের যারা ফার্মার, যারা হাতে জিনিস তৈরি করে তাদের সবার সাথে উনি কথা বলেছেন, উনি ইন্টারঅ্যাক্ট করেছেন, উনি তারা কিভাবে তাদের জীবন যাপন করে, ওনাদের যাপন সম্বন্ধেও কিন্তু উনি শুনেছেন, শুধু জীবন নয় যাপন সম্বন্ধেও উনি শুনেছেন। এবং এই যাপন শোনার আগে উনি কিন্তু গোটা উত্তর পূর্ব ভারত ঘুরে এসছেন, নর্থ ইস্ট ইন্ডিয়া ঘুরে এসছে, যেটা আমাদের দেশের মানুষজন খুবই কম দেখেছে এবং পৃথিবীর মানুষ তো খুব কম জানে যে এই জায়গাটা কোথায় এবং কি। সো উই আর নাও টুডে with very famous author and poet Vikram Seth, and we're so very happy that you visited us at the Sunday Hut, and then as a part of the Sunday Hut, as an extension, we came into this studio, Amudarya studio. So your travel, because everybody knows about your books and poems, you've seen your fans back at the Sunday Hut, they were all there, but beyond that, you're a traveler. So, what makes you this travel? Why do you travel? What makes you travel? What is the inside?
Well, basically, I'm quite a sedentary person. Most of my days are just spent sitting in bed, which is my office, on a blue duvet with a kind of writing board and scribbling away. But suddenly, sometimes, this travel impulse either comes upon me directly, or sometimes I'm kidnapped. Now, in this particular case, I was kidnapped by your friend, Kunal Verma, and mine. He was going to Arunachal, and he said, look, why don't you come along? I'll be able to go to places where you can't normally go, very close to the Chinese border, Tibetan border. And I thought this was a wonderful opportunity. So I went along with him for 2 weeks. Then I thought to myself, I've come to one of the Seven Sisters. It's been many decades since I've been here. Why don't I visit the other 6? So I decided to do that, and though some people said don't go to Manipur, I said no, I don't see any reason not to.
Yes.
So I went to Arunachal, to
Manipur.
First to Nagaland.
Yes.
Then Tripura. In each case, of course, crossing Assam. From Tripura directly to Mizoram.
Yes.
Then from Aizawl to Churachandpur, Lamka, and then across from there to More and Kangpokpi, and also, of course, sometime in the valley itself in Imphal. Yes. Finally, Shillong and Kaziranga, and now I'm here. I feel this is what has to be. North Bengal could be considered one of the two brothers. Yes. North Bengal and Sikkim.
Yes.
Of the Seven Sisters. So let's say the 9 siblings.
Yes.
I haven't yet been to Sikkim, but I'll go this afternoon.
Yes, that's very nicely said. When you say, it's the Seven Sisters with the 2 brothers, Sikkim and North Bengal, because it's a completely different narrative of looking at the entire Northeast as a geography.
Indeed.
And, all of them, when they club together Northeast, they think Northeast is just one thing. But when you travel in the insides, you know how diverse it is, how it goes all the way from Tibet, Bhutan into Myanmar, and the Yunnan area at the top. So,
correct.
So geographically, historically, civilization-wise,
yes,
these are very important. This is a very important point when you connect to your childhood place, Patna, the Pataliputra, or old Pataliputra.
What I consider the Nabhi of the universe.
The Nabhi of the universe.
Oh, at least for me, because I lived there between the age of 6 and 16. But between the ages of 28 and 30, when I was doing economics, that was my profession in a university in California, at Stanford, I lived in China for 2 years. So, at Nanjing University, doing some research in the villages there. And I traveled all over, including in Tibet. And it was quite odd for me when I was in, I think, Wacha, not far from Kibitu,
Yes.
in the far northeast of Arunachal,
Yes.
to see a sign saying Tibet 10 kilometers. So I was seeing things from a different perspective entirely.
Yes, yes.
You know, so many years after I saw it from the other side.
So when you talk about this transition coming from Tibet, China, and then into northeastern region, this was always one land, where when we did not have the so-called India, China, and all these places. So this entire Hindu Kush Himalayan region, and then the change from the Patkai through the Dafa boom into Myanmar.
Yes.
So this entire triangle between the Indian Peninsula and Malayan Peninsula is a very important triangle, and you have seen both the sides now.
I guess I have. I mean, I haven't gone as far north as, Mitkina or Mishina, but as far as Bandalay and so on. And actually, you do get that sense of the north-south ridges there, and it's more of an east-west thing in India. And I suppose that's because the Indian plate or whatever pushed up.
Yes.
But it is very interesting that in what you could call mainland India, I don't know if that term is used here, but
it is used. It is used
even in North Bengal.
Yes.
So in mainland India, we already have three of the great culture zones of the world. We have Hinduism, we have Islam, we have Judeo-Christianity.
Yes.
The one thing that I always felt quite largely missing was that other very large culture zone, which is East Asia. China, Tibet, Japan, Korea, places like that. And the closest we get to it is in the northeast.
Yes.
And that's perhaps one of the reasons why I wanted to live in China for 2 years, because I hadn't been to the northeast, and I wanted some aspect of that tradition as well, through the poets whom I'd read and later translated.
So, when you talk about the Eastern culture, there's a very interesting culture, which rises from Buddhism. Buddhism being the seed, and then into tea, and then into silk,
And the civil service, which was invented, you say, by the Chinese 2,000 years ago.
2,000 years ago. So, all these journeys covering the different rivers, because the mainland Indian people, they know about the Gangetic, the spread and everything. But as you go towards Brahmaputra and further to Iravati, these are the routes which are completely forgotten. When you look at the northeastern part, you feel that, when you immerse as an Indian, you gradually emerge as an Asian. So this transition.
Do you mind repeat? You just repeat that last sentence.
Like you, as an Indian, you immerse as an Indian in the northeastern
immerse
region,
as an Indian
and emerge as an Asian. So this transition. This is a very important civilizational transition for us.
Yes.
For us in India and for the rest of Southeast Asia and the rest of the.
And with names like Brahmaputra and Iravati. And Ayodhya. I mean, things like that, culturally, in a sense, there have been so many cross flows one way or the other. Or the Thai movement, not only the later Ahom movement, but even the earlier movements.
The Thais when they came, the 10 different Thais who came in,
And that whole idea of the Sino-Tibetan, Burman group of languages and so on. So, though you may see it as the periphery of the great Han culture zone, it's also part of that general umbrella.
Exactly, because the Han culture, when it comes down, the older cultures which were already there in this pocket, because it was divided naturally. They were divided naturally, and they were pushed. And then you have the Indian movement, through the from Pataliputra, through Nalanda, through these universities, for the viharas and the mahaviharas, they slowly come into the tantric zone over here. It's a complete nature where people pray to nature instead of having structures, architecture for temples and churches and mosques. It was praying from inside. The belief in the nature, which we misunderstood as animism, but we often refer to as biodivinity. So this culture, which was there much before any of the religious culture came in, have always remained as a pocket and went into the rest of the world. So how have you seen that when you moved into the entire Northeast, this transition of the different geographical coming into one?
It's very difficult to generalize, but I'm still stuck on the thought of biodivinities and high emphasis, which nowhere else in the world you get on Vahans.
Vahans, yes.
Whether it's today Bhairav's
Yes.
dog or Lakshmi's owl or things that where the god later, having sat on the animal, then literally supersedes the animal.
Yes.
But I like the idea of biodivinity as opposed to animism, which is rather a sort of, how would you say, a clinical term.
Yes.
The one could say that anima is the soul and therefore it's a very large thing, but not. I think personally it was used as a categorization of something that people didn't know quite what to make of.
Yes, they didn't understand it. Yes.
Now, I mean, just remember, I've only been here in the Northeast. I was supposed to be here for 2 weeks. In fact, I've been here 8 or 9 weeks. But that is hardly any time to make generalizations. So I will try to avoid answering that question by saying, I've taken it in, but it requires a little time for me to
But when you see the weaving, everything is woven here, from your clothes to your baskets,
Absolutely.
to your house, to your roofs, everything is woven. So this culture of weaving,
True.
The way you see it, the transition, and you differentiate them by their weaves.
Absolutely. I mean, for example, one of the things I had to be very careful of, just to go to something sad from something uplifting. When I went from the Kuki territories down to the Meitei territories, I had to make sure that nowhere in my car was there something that was a kind of Kuki weave. And similarly, when I went back again, I had to make sure that it took off. In a time of danger like this, the thing that really should tie people together, the weave, the warp, the weft of life. In fact, in Chinese, wen shui and the idea of culture itself is tied in with the idea of weaving. For us, the idea of culture is what is put together, Sanskrit.
Yes.
But for them, wen shui is the title of, is the meaning of, wen shui is literature. But literature and culture are both tied in with the idea of weaving. Now, it is so much a part of identity. I think as we were talking this morning, you said even trade would be impossible, let alone clothing, without weaving. You need to put things in containers before you put them on the mule back or the yak back or wherever you put them. And the other thing you mentioned this morning, but I'm kind of anticipating it, is pottery.
It's terracotta.
Terracotta,
because you made these, big jars and pots to put on your boat and go on the maritime route. So, if you didn't have that, you couldn't send your
oil or your fish or your wine or your salt
biodiversity.
Your
biodiversity, because that is what human beings live with. We are part of the biodiversity, and the food came from biodiversity. So it went from this region, the high biodiversity zone that we have over here, the East Himalaya, the Indo-Burma, and all these biodiversity hotspots that we have actually.
No, I mean, we've been very fortunate in some ways because the valleys have created their own micro, what should you call them, diversity zones or strips. And a large part of what the world enjoys comes from quite small areas.
Small areas, very true. And as you see, you are into such a wonderful region, the Tista region. We call it the Kanchenjunga area, the Kanchenjunga region. With Sikkim, North Bengal, a little bit of your eastern Nepal and
Bhutan, and that little bit of China coming down.
Yes, and the northern Bangladesh.
And the northern Bangladesh.
From all the places you can see the mighty Kanchenjunga, as you'll see now during your
Can
travel.
you really see it from the very far north of Bangladesh also?
Yes,
on a very clear day that you're very lucky.
And this is the season when people from entire Bangladesh they
go
flock on the northern part of Bangladesh.
Rangpur? No.
Yes, all the way towards the Rangpur and this entire zone between Lalmonirhat to Jaipurhat.
Right.
This entire zone, they come together. We call it the Tista to see the Kanchenjunga.
Sounds like cherry blossom.
Yes, like cherry, like to see it. So that's the guardian deity for us.
Yes.
And this rises from the Mechi River. The ridge rises from the Mechi River and ends up at the top of Kanchenjunga, separating Nepal Himalaya from the eastern Himalaya geographically.
And not also in terms of fauna and flora?
Also in terms of flora and fauna.
I see.
Only the continuity is the people and the culture.
Right.
So, both sides, the same people, same language, same this one. But their dependency in biodiversity, in their house styles and everything, it changes. All of this. So these interesting things when you go up to Sikkim now through North Bengal and spend some time over here, this is the last stretch which meets the Brahmaputra, the Tista.
Right.
So it's a very interesting area between Tista to Koshi.
Yes, after that Brahmaputra joins rather than gets joined.
Yes, yes.
So you do then, your credibility is on the line here. You guarantee that I will see Kanchenjunga from Gangtok or somewhere in Sikkim.
Yes, because
I'm going there today.
You are going to many places.
And tomorrow I'll write you a strongly worded email if I don't see it tomorrow.
So you'll be visiting southern Sikkim, Yangyang, close to Ramangla, and then going to the best part of Gangtok, that is the Pangthang area. You'll be going to from where you have the best views with the nature over there.
What about North Sikkim? Is it possible to go there, or the roads rather
There is possible,
difficult?
but what has happened is after the Glof, after the glacial lake outflow that we had, some of the roads are very badly damaged, some of the bridges are gone. So they have just been connected. People have been allowed to go there from today.
From today?
From today. It
That's
has
a very
opened up.
shubh.
This one, and maybe we would be able to connect you to the eastern part, that is the Nathula part, and also to the northern part, to the Mangan and the Lachin Lachung areas.
So, well, one or the other. I mean, I'm now floating like flotsam on Rajbasu's calm stream, and we'll see where the flood takes me.
There were a few friends. They are mostly very senior journalists.
Yes.
While you write, and they were asking that there is a lot of influence or relation in regard to literature between India and Bangladesh. So there was a very political questions that they wanted me to put to you, and they asked that that with the present relation between Bangladesh and India, how do you see that literature would go about in this time?
Personally, it may be that there may be fewer literary festivals or literary meets and so on, but literature, whether it's poetry, doesn't need a visa.
Exactly.
So just as you said, in the old days, birds didn't need visas, human beings didn't need visas. Certainly, literature far supersedes all these temporary problems of the moment. Now, to play football together, you have to be in the same place. But to exchange a poem, you don't.
Very true. Very nicely said. So it was wonderful having you at Amudarya, and we are so very grateful that the studio, they hosted us today beyond the Sunday Heart, and we could come together.
I mean, the very name Amudarya, reminds one of the great rivers that flow into the Aral Sea and the great river Oxus. And one of the first poems I read in English literature, a long poem, was Sohrab and Rustam by Matthew Arnold, which was based on Firdausi, the Shahnama, and the story of the father and the son who meet on battle or in battle. And so even here, in a place which is itself at a crossroads between so many different places, it's very interesting that another crossroads should have been chosen as the title of this particular publishing house institution.
Yes. So, when we talk about the Hindu Kush Himalayan region, on one end you have Amudarya, and the other end you have Lohit, which you have been to. So,
Dabang, Lohit, and then later
for the east. So, this is where, we always want you to come back every time, and we always want you to be a part of this land and people over here.
I feel I already am. I'm certainly coming back. There's no question of that. Someone once said you cross the Brahmaputra once, you have to cross it 9 times.
Yes.
Why not 99?
Very true. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Amudarya News. Voice of the Marginal.